Welcome, everyone. My name is Yoonjin Yoon, and I'm the faculty director leading the Urban KAIST, which is the KAIST initiative on urban science. I'm really excited and honored to host the second edition of Urban X seminar series this fall. Well, as you might be aware, the Urban X runs every fall semester, and our focus this fall is urban digital intelligence to make cities smarter. As usual, we'll spend around 20 to 25 minutes for a talk and another 15 to 20 minutes for Q&A. And you can use the Zoom chat box to upload your question anytime during the talk. Before I start, I'd like to thank a key person behind the Urban X, Dr. Namu Kim. He's a postdoctoral researcher working with me and co-organizer of the series. Namu, can you say hi to everybody?
Okay, thank you for your nice introduction and nice to meet you all. I'm Namu Kim, a postdoctoral researcher working with spatial temporal data mining and urban informatics. I would
Great.
like to express my sincere gratitude to Professor Yunjin for the significant effort she has put in to organize this seminar and today's speaker, Dr. Fabio, for his contribution. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Okay, all right, let's get to the business. So today I'm so happy to introduce Dr. Fabio Duarte from MIT Senseable City Lab. Dr. Duarte is the Associate Director of MIT Senseable City Lab, and his main research area lies in the intersection of data and analytics, technology, and design. His research has been published in Nature Water, Science Robotics, PLOS ONE. His most recent book argues that the technology is powerful when it's playful. The title is Urban Play, published by MIT Press. Please welcome Dr. Fabio Duarte.
Good. So, good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm also glad that KAIST and MIT Sensible City Lab, we are starting a collaboration this month, and it will be, I think, a great opportunity to expand this network of research and innovation here. So today I will give an introduction about what the Sensible City Lab does and how we combine data analytics, technology, and design. So I will share my screen so we can have a better idea of our work. So now you see my full screen. And the Sensible City Lab, we start with this premise that even though cities occupy only 3% of the Earth's crust, we house more than half of the world population, as we know, but more importantly, I think, is our impact in terms of energy consumption and CO2 related emissions. So 70% of all the energy consumed in the world is linked to urban activities. Even sometimes, even though the energy is not consumed in urban cores, but is consumed because of urban activities. Similarly, we have 75% of CO2 related emissions linked to urban activities. And why I make this point? Because if we want to address any of our global issues, we do have to focus in cities. And how we do this here at MIT? MIT has, this is the main building. You are all welcome to visit us here. And MIT has a very important motto. It's called Mens et Manus. It means mind and hands. So the idea is that all the innovation that we do here in the Institute, it has to have a social impact. And the social impact can be from an actual artifact, a technological device, but also it can be some very powerful ideas. And a good example is this year's Nobel Prize in Economics, right? So Acemoglu and his peers, they did not invent any device. They did not invent any mathematical innovation, but the way they conceived and could explain, for instance, why some nations thrive and others fail. So all the innovation that we try to do here can be very conceptual, can be very practical, but needs to have some application in the real world. And this probably is helped by how the campus is arranged. So MIT, we are housed in the Department of Urban Studies and Planning, but different from many universities where you have the urban studies building, the mathematics building, the medical engineering building, whatever. At MIT, you have what we call the infinite corridor. It's basically a single corridor that connects all the buildings, either above ground or underground. And our next door neighbors, they are for the aerospatial technology. But if we cross the hallway, we have all the chemists doing their reactions. Oftentimes the doors are closed and we cannot go anywhere because they have some wrong reaction going on. So, and this is very interesting because it inevitably starts new conversations. So I think this cross-disciplinarity is something that we do live in our daily basis. We don't have to send an email to my colleague from the medical school. Oh, look, let's do a research together about, I don't know, spread of diseases in urban areas. I cross with him in the cafeteria. And this is also reflected in our lab. So in the line, you have several projects that we have been working on. And on the arc, you have several researchers. And our lab, we have more or less 25 people working here at MIT. And we have also some researchers working in Dubai and in Amsterdam. And what is interesting is that we have in our lab three PIs, principal investigators. My background is in urban planning. The lab's director, Carlo Ratti, his background is in civil engineering and architecture. And my other colleague, the other PI, Paolo Santi, he's a computer scientist. And this diversity spreads across the lab. So we have designers, economists, urban planners, mathematicians, physicists. So I think this mix is what brings to the lab a very unique character. And what we try to do with this mix is find what are the problems that we could address in cities that are between what we call the physical layer and the digital layer of cities. But as you can see in this image here, more and more, these two layers, they are close together to the point that they are merged. And this is true. So for instance, right now is a very simple example that it's trivial today, but it was not 20 years ago when Carlo opened the lab. We are here in this seminar across countries, across time zones, because we're connected through technology. That's so trivial, right? But let's see what we can learn about cities and how people live in cities through this combination of digital data that permeates everywhere that we go. But also, the lab is very careful to not think that we can only look at urban problems with data that's out there available. Sometimes we have to do the hard work and build our own sensors to collect data. So I will give you here two examples of projects that I'm not showing today. On the left upper side, you see these scooters in a bridge. So what this project is about, we start using cell phones to monitor the health of bridges. So if they were strong enough to hold cars, so, or if they were at the brink of collapse. And how do we did that? So in every cell phone, we have a technology called accelerometer that mainly tracks how the cell phone is moving, right? Up and down, vertical and horizontal. But we found doing some tests in bridges in San Francisco and Boston, is that even though the quality of this accelerometer is very poor in comparison with technical and scientific measurements of bridge health, when we collect thousands and thousands of measurements, the signature is very similar, but with a fraction of the price. So we did that driving back and forth San Francisco Bridge more than 100 times, Boston, and then eventually we proved that it's true. And some companies, in this case in Italy, they have been using scooters when their employees are crossing the bridges to do whatever service. Every time that they go out, their cell phone is sending us data about their movement, right? And this helps the company to detect whether or not the vibration of the bridge is within the parameters or out of parameters. And if they are off, they need to be measured. And in the middle low, what we have is some PhD students that they were at some point with us developing some robots to go into the sewage to collect sewage material with robots because it's a very dangerous environment, right? Sewage. But these robots could go there, collect the wastewater, and then we could bring to the lab to detect viruses, bacteria, drugs. So it became a very important tool for public health. This was done before COVID-19. And then when the pandemic hit, two of these colleagues here, they had already opened a startup in 2018. And they monitor more than 200 cities in the United States daily for COVID-19 with this technology. But let me show you something more interesting about what we have been doing around the world. So the lab is in Boston, but all the green dots are cities with which we have worked, doing some workshops, or actually the main important thing is that we teach a class here, and we use these cities as our laboratory. And the black dots are where we have permanent labs. We have one in Stockholm, which is finishing this year. And we have one in Amsterdam for 9 years, one in Dubai, and now we are opening one in Rio. And what we do, I will give you 3 examples, and then we can open for discussion. And they range across more or less 8 years. So the first one, Tripedia, started because of the following. Many cities around the world, they know the importance of having greenery. Not only for the environmental benefits, right? Okay, you can have a cleaner city where you have trees, but also they are providing shade to counter thermal stress, but also they have the psychological benefits of greenery. How cities monitor that? They have mainly 2 ways of doing that. One of them is simply to send somebody to count trees. But what this person is missing? This person is counting trees. But if you look attentively to this photograph, what we see is that most of the greenery is not related to the trees, but they're related to the green walls, to the grass on the ground, and of trees in private property. This person from the municipality can only count trees in the public roads, right? Because she cannot see how many trees you have behind that. And for us, honestly, it doesn't matter. If we see this picture, who cares how many trees are there? What we want to know is the information about the tree canopy, right? So how to quantify all the greenery that we have around here? Another method that is obviously much more granular and efficient is using satellite imagery. What's interesting here is 2 things. The first one is that, and it's sad, sometimes when we are in more developed cities like Seoul or any other city in Korea or in Boston or in New York, is okay, we have the resources, we have the satellite imagery, we have technical resources as well. We do the analysis, we quantify greenery. But if you move this to several other countries and several other cities, even within the United States, they don't have the technical resources to do the analysis of this image and to quantify greenery. But also, similarly, this type of analysis is not taking into account all this green envelope around the street. So what we decided to do, it was, remember, more or less 8 years ago, we said, okay, for more than 400 cities in the world at that time, Google was making available Google Street View imagery, right? Today, you can go to Google Street View, you can see the views, etc. But Google forbids you to download and use this image, even for academic purpose. It's a disaster. But at that point, Google was open. And what we did, we said, okay, what if we go there and we simply collect all the Google Street View images in a city? So this is driving from Boston to MIT. This is MIT camp. No, this is the bridge. So very soon we'll be on the MIT side. This is MIT. And at that time, we did something very simple, very, very simple. For each image, we simply counted the number of green pixels. And then we had the ratio green pixels against all the other pixels in the image. Therefore, this ratio became for us what we call the green view index. It's not the number of trees. We know that we're not segmenting what is tree, what is grass, what is green wall. At that time, there was no image segmentation algorithms, right? But what was the advantage of this project that was so simple in terms of computer vision? Is exactly because it was simple. If you see here, we started this project, when we did it the first time, we had only 5 cities, just to prove the concept. Let's take all the Street View images in 5 cities, let's quantify the amount of greenery, and give, okay, this is your green view index. But it was so simple, and we made this open source, that from 5 cities, we now have 30 cities online. The other 25 cities, they did themselves. And these 30 cities are only the cities that prepare their Tripedia, as the project is called, and they send us the files and the data, and then we put them live. We don't know how many more might have done this without even sharing. And what is interesting is that we heard from several groups that some cities used this project to quantify for the first time their greenery, but also civic groups were using Tripedia to quantify greenery in different parts of the city, and then they could go back to the municipality and say, look, why my neighborhood does not have as many trees as somebody else's neighborhood? And so I think this became a very important community engagement tool. This data, Tripedia, is what we call opportunistic data. So data that's out there is freely available. What we need to do is to collect this data if we have a very good research question, right? Sometimes this data is not freely available in any city. In the case of Google Street View imagery, we had for 440 cities. But sometimes municipalities put out their data. In this case, it was New York. So New York, as you might know, they have the yellow cabs, very famous. And every year, the yellow cabs, they make 150 million trips. So lots of 150 million trips per year. However, even though they are serving, people say maybe these yellow cabs, they are not optimized. So what we knew that happens? So we collect all, the city of New York made available all the taxi trips with the origin and destination of each trip with a timestamp. So using some network maps, we mapped the trips, how they probably went through New York, and we found that almost half of the time, taxis in New York are running empty, either because the driver simply dropped somebody and remained there waiting for a new passenger, or the driver dropped the passenger and kept driving around without nobody. And we thought, okay, maybe what if we could do the following? The driver would drop a passenger. So imagine that I go here and I dropped passenger A, and Eugene comes next to me and drops passenger B. What do? We can simply stay there or drive randomly in the city. But with 150 million trips, we knew the probability of the probability whether any passenger would request a taxi at the same point in 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and so on and so forth, everywhere in the city. So we created this massive network saying, two drivers dropped two passengers. Where should they go? Let's see, where are all the other trips emerging in the city of New York? So I could, with a centralized system, send the drivers where most probably a passengers will be there if they drive 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes. And this is what we create, we call what they call the minimum fleet, meaning that what's the minimum number of cars in New York to serve the same number of passengers. So these are all the taxis in New York, which are vacant half of the time. And then once we mapped all of the trips, we create this network. So all the trips, all the possible trips that any driver could get at any moment, depending on how much they will drive. And what we found is that without penalizing any passenger, meaning that, okay, the passenger will never see any difference. I ask a cab, the cab will be there. But we saw that by doing this mathematical model, we could serve the passengers with 60% of the cars currently operating in New York. So imagine the reduction in traffic that would cause for the city. And the project was so powerful that it was published in a journal that very rarely publishes anything about urban issues. And the visualization also was pretty nice, and it was on the cover. So I think this was a very good achievement for us, the lab, but also to highlight that urban problems deserve a scientific acknowledgement, right? And the last project that I would show before we open for conversation is a combination of robotics and urban infrastructure. And the project started in Amsterdam. So we have this collaboration with the city for 8 years, as I mentioned before. And for those who know Amsterdam, it's a very beautiful city with all the canals. And when we start going there to discuss with the city which project should we do, etc., the city came to us and said, look, Senseable, we know that you have been working with autonomous mobility, autonomous cars in Singapore. At the time, we had an important presence in Singapore. And they said, okay, let's also develop autonomous cars for Amsterdam. But what came to our mind immediately was this. Why a city with more than 100 kilometers of canals would invest anything on cars, right? And if we see this map and see all these canals, The amazing thing is that this is only half of the canals that the city had in early 20th century. Amsterdam paved almost half of its canals to make room for roads. So what we propose to the city, okay, let's not develop autonomous cars. Let's develop autonomous boats for the city. And say, oh, this is amazing. Let's develop rowboat, a robotic boat. Fine. So we start going there, and this is what we saw. This is a summer day in Amsterdam. As you can see, it's very difficult to manage a boat there. A manned boat is difficult. Imagine a robotics boat. So we start mapping all the boat traffic in the city, in all the canals, to find the best path, meaning the path with the least probability of any collision. So we had all our computer scientists working on that. It was a very nice work. But even though the results were promising, it's still data-driven only. Where is the boat? We did not have the boat yet, right? It was the very beginning, no boat. At the same time, we were engaging the community. We were saying, okay, look, if I'm bringing autonomous boats to a city, what do residents want with these rowboats? So we had all these workshops at MIT, in Amsterdam, with young people, with students, with city officials, with the population. So, okay, look, if we're bringing rowboat here, what do we want to do with these boats? And the nice thing of some of these workshops is that they were also able to create this virtual reality experiment. So they could feel themselves. How would it be to go onto a boat in their own cities? So that was a very nice way to engage them, not only with the use case, but also with some very advanced technology for the time, that they could say, look, this is how we can imagine my own city, right? And then we have been doing all this research, and at the same time, we were testing boats. So this is the very initial phase several years ago with the boat avoiding obstacles in a swimming pool at MIT. This is the postdoc that we're developing the collision avoidance systems. Okay, look, if you trust your own model, go there in the swimming pool and test it. So it was very nice, but eventually, okay, after 5 years, it was time to deliver the boat. And we were still doing all these use cases, which were engaged the city, but we had to have a boat. And now I'm playing the video with sound, because there is a narration, to see what we were able to achieve.
This is Lucy. Lucy is a rowboat, a fully autonomous, zero-emission boat that operates on urban waterways, and she can change the way cities work. As congestion and emissions continue to rise, while cities continue to grow, the existing infrastructure of many cities struggles to keep up. Rowboats offer a solution by moving road traffic to the water. By bringing passengers from A to B, or as an on-demand boat, taking you anywhere you want. And they can also help the city as a multi-purpose workboat. Take Crystal. She is equipped to collect household waste to free the streets from heavy garbage trucks. Rowboats are fully autonomous, so they navigate without a skipper and can operate 24/7. In order to sail by themselves, rowboats need to perceive their environment and recognize objects such as bridge pillars, floating objects, and of course other vessels. The primary source of information comes from a LiDAR sensor, but rowboats are also equipped with cameras, GPS, and a digital compass. Rowboat's onboard computer combines and processes all of the data and runs the rowboat software so it can successfully complete its mission plan. After 5 years of development, testing and experimentation, we have now successfully enabled autonomy on the full-scale prototypes. Rowboat is ready for the next step. Join us and let's unlock the potential of urban waterways together.
So I think this project also encapsulates all the areas that the lab works, right? The data analysis, the design, the community engagement, and the hardware development. So I think with that, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity, and I'm really excited with the initial of the collaboration. So ready for questions. I see some of them here, right? Yeah, so the first question I can read aloud. So have you considered using Tripita results and connecting it to the quality of life indicators such as health outcomes, poverty, real estate? Yes. So, but more important than that, what we are doing right now, I will give up. You cannot put it online before the paper is published. No, but I'm joking. But what we are doing is the following. We think that there are at least 3 different types of exposure to greenery. So mainly medical journals, psychological journals, they have several studies at very small scales showing how exposure to greenery benefits well-being. However, some of them measure this in terms of how many park areas or trees you have in your neighborhood. Others measure, okay, if you can see greenery out of your window, etc. So what we have done, we consider 3 types of exposure to greenery. One of them called intentional, meaning that how many parks and the area of these parks that you have within 500 meters and 1 kilometer from your home location. So parks. So you have an intention to go to a park. The other one is, I always forget our name, but the other one is is not info is I forget. But the other one is street greenery, meaning that okay, I want to go to the supermarket, but on my way to the supermarket, I walk on a street where we have greenery. And the third one is indirect access to greenery, is how much greenery I can see from my window. And for doing that, we also use part of street view imagery. And for instance, in the building that Eugene you have in your background, we could, using some computational models, we could mimic how much greenery you can see if you are on the ground floor, on the first floor, 5th floor, 10th floor of the building. And then we compare this with 2 things. First, it's very difficult to have well-being data, but in Japan, they have a happiness index. They interview thousands of people every year, asking, okay, how happy are you, etc. So the first thing that we did is to compare which type of access to greenery is higher correlated with happiness. So this is our first attempt. And now I cannot say because we are starting another one on well-being for the United States. Question 2, let me see. The number of trees, but the deeper meaning behind the green. Okay, interesting. So curious if we could also get a feedback on how this greenery impacts residents and whether that feedback could be incorporated back in the data. Okay, we just submitted the revised version of a manuscript where we are trying to measure biophilia. Biophilia is the positive feelings that we have when in contact with natural elements. But then we had a question. Let's say that we accept that this is true. However, we don't know if somebody living in Dubai would have the same positive feelings or positive feelings toward the same natural elements than someone living in Stockholm or someone living in Rio in Brazil. So what we did here is we interviewed 50 people in each country, 8 questions to rate image pairs. And then with this, we train a model. And then we went back to 8 different biomes in the world to see whether there is a difference between how people perceive nature depending on which biome they live. So I think this was a way of bringing this impression back to the model. And there is one question that I cannot understand. It's in Korean. And then...
No, I was just saying that the audience can
Ah,
ask in Korean as well. So
ah,
you can
okay,
just
okay,
skip
okay,
that.
okay. Ah,
Just
okay,
Q3
okay.
straight.
Yeah, yeah. Ah, yeah. So about the use of satellite imagery and street view imagery. So I mentioned this now, right? And we have a paper that also we just submit this week, the revised version, calling There is no true green. Why? Because we took several cities and we quantify the amount of greenery when we use satellite imagery and when you use street view imagery. And we found, and it's well known in the literature, that sometimes there is a mismatch between them. And what we try to do is, okay, let's incorporate a third data set, which is cities cadastre. So some cities, they know exactly how many trees are there, right? And we saw that the mismatch is complete. They don't match. And the paper is not only to show that there is a mismatch between satellite and street view, but why there is this mismatch. So depending on the resolution, on the distance. So the whole point of there is no true greenery is that our approach using street view imagery is not better than the satellite imagery approach. Simply, they give you different results. So from our side, what is important is to understand why they give different results. And for an urban planning perspective, is okay, if they give different results, which method is better for my purpose? So I think I respond to the 3 questions.
Oh, thank you so much for the fantastic talk and the Q&A.
I think
Oh,
Dongman Lee has a
Dongman is
question.
raising hand. So,
Oh, nice to meet you. It was
Nice to
very
meet you.
interesting presentation. I missed the first part, but a little bit was so interesting. Actually, capture the urban perception dynamics just simply using very high level, the capturing of the such a green color instead of, but because I'm a computer scientist, so
Yeah.
I was thinking actually counting trees, right? If I started the same project, so let me start with something a little bit joke because in Korea, in Seoul, especially the old houses, the roof of the house, they usually the painted with green colors. So if you apply your approach, maybe so many trees, so many greens, so it kind of gives. I wonder it may give some wrong impression.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
City government people, right? They
Yeah,
just
yeah.
give a wrong the message to
Yeah.
the lights. In the same venue, I'm very interesting to know. Are there any other examples you can think of or you have tried in your lab taking similar, the approach? So it's just capturing instead of just kind of picking up specific objects, for example, the business of the road. But I was thinking like, based on your presentation, got impressed like, oh, instead of just kind of the picking every car specifically, just kind of pointing at the dot in the first place, if there's something wrong, and then just focusing, for example. So do you have any, could you share your other approaches or the trials, any experiments?
Yeah. One that we're trying now, because there is this idea, obviously, when we did this project, we did not have image segmentation, right? Where we can go there and recognize a tree, a car, and now we can. But what we're trying to do with this image segmentation, one project now related to well-being, is actually the United States has a survey about general well-being, mental well-being, and physical well-being. So we are putting everything together and say, okay, look, if we control for income, for instance, for ethnicity, some control for some social aspects that might influence well-being directly, which are the features in the urban environment that might be correlated with well-being? And in this case, we are having kind of a sweeping approach. So we are quantifying whatever I can see in an image, including not the detection of objects, but variety in terms of color palette. So are images that are only green better that image that have some green, but also some roads, some building bricks? So, and we don't know yet the results, but I think this is a way of not only looking at specific objects as determinants of something.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let me put here on the chat, one thing is, this is the website of our program, right? On the lab. And very soon we will have a conference. It's a forum, it's not a conference, it's only some panels. There is no paper presentation. But I think it would be nice if you have a look, because even though we have been working with this digital technologies a lot, we are very interested in understanding how the physical proximity, human proximity, but also different species, the proximity with different species is important to understand cities. So sometimes we don't realize that cities are not only a human environment, but also is an environment that we share with microbes, with insects, with other animals, and should be our responsibility when we design and build cities to take care of everybody and every other species with which we share space.
Thank you for the insight. So before I let you go, I just maybe this is sort of out of the scope, but in the introduction slide it said you mentioned that you guys are working with international partners, and one way to do it is teach at the international location. So how does that really work? Do you think you can offer, we can arrange something similar at KAIST as well?
Yeah. So usually the cities they become part of our consortium. And it's a 3-year membership. And then during these 3 years, the first year, it varies a little which come first. But traditionally, the first year, we teach a course called Digital City Design Workshop.
Right.
And the whole course is about some problem that we think technology and data might help the city. And in this year, in 2025, the 2 cities that became part of the consortium to do that are Rome in Italy and Dubai. And both of them, the problem is warming cities, how to cool down warming cities. So the first year we teach the course at MIT, and then students go to the city, do the work, come back. And the result of that are 8 proposals for each city, and we have a what we call the Senseable guide to Rome, for instance. Then the second year we do the same thing, but in the city itself. So we go to the city and spend 10 days, a little bit there for more than 1 week. And sometimes we do this either with city officials. It was most recently a case in a city in Laval, here in Canada. Sometimes the city, instead of having their city officials joining, they have a strong collaboration with a local university. It was the case of Melbourne. So they brought Swinburne students, master students to do this workshop. So this is the dynamic, is a kind of nice collaboration that we can have both. And the third one, they come to MIT in a 1 week to spend with us all the time. Yeah.
Right. Well, I definitely like to learn more when we meet at the conference
Yes.
in 2 weeks. All
Yes,
right.
exactly. Welcome here.
All right. Thank you so much, Fabio. It was very insightful and enlightening. I had a bit of an audio problem in the middle, but I
Oh,
was so
sorry for
happy
that.
to hear what you guys have done, and more importantly, had a chance to introduce Sensible to KAIST community. Thank you so much. So thank
So
you,
thank you all
everyone.
for joining us today. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
same here. Thank you everyone for joining us. Before I let you go, I'd just like to thank our sponsor, GSENC, for providing financial support. And next week, we're gonna have a Korea's leading mobility startup, Motov, CTO Sung Kim joining us. The seminar is, by the company's request, is invitation only. So if you're interested, send an email to Urban@KAIST. Okay, Fabio and everyone, have a happy weekend and hope to
Thank
see you
you.
again.
Thank you.
Okay,
Bye.
bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.